Hey everyone, I'm Victor Dwyer, and this is the Marketing Perspective Podcast, where we get with experts and talk about the latest trends and strategies in the ever evolving world of marketing. I'm your host, Victor Dwyer, and today we have Jason Hanan, a knowledgeable individual specializing in assisting private labels Amazon sellers. Jason's expertise lies in utilizing data-driven approaches to help these sellers effectively raise their prices. But first, before we dive into everything, Jason, give us a little introduction on who you are and what you're currently working on.
Sure. So again, my name is Jason Hanan, and I am the co-founder of actually an agency called MMX Distribution. That's where we manage other sellers, private label sellers' accounts. And we have developed AZ Seller Kit, which is a software that automates pricing. That basically we use that in order to help us manage our accounts, and we've been blessed that we have hundreds of users that are on the software, which really gives us insights into a lot of different pricing decisions that the market is making and the successes and failures of the different things that are actually happening. So we really do, really lucky in order to have a lot of just data to look at and play with, and really be able to understand what's working and what's not working, and how things develop over time.
And I'm super excited to talk about this because like everyone's talking about profitability, profitability, profitability. Like that's what this we're talking about. And when it comes to pricing, pricing is one of the easiest ways to increase profitability. And I'd love to hear from you. What are some common mistakes that people make when it comes to pricing on Amazon?
Yeah, I mean, so probably the number one mistake that people make is usually just looking at their cost and saying, I have to raise my price. Cost went up. I have to raise my price by $5. I have to raise my price by $7. Amazon fees went up, and just raising a price without thought.
Mm-hmm.
There's definitely a real important need on Amazon to move things gradually. And if you just, take a price from, 25 to $30 overnight, then your conversions could drop super quickly, and you're basically going to fall off of whatever page you were on. And you think you had no choice, but in reality maybe 28 was the right price, and you're much better off being at a higher profit dollar than you are where you're actually able to sell 100 units a day, let's say, than you are selling 10 units a day for a better margin. So it
Yeah.
really is just, trying to thread that needle of increasing pricing, but doing it slowly and making sure you're finding that sweet spot of what the customer is willing to accept.
Can you talk about how customers can almost find that perfect sweet spot between getting the most sales possible and crossing that with the highest profit possible? Can you go into that a little bit?
Yeah. So probably one of the most important things to understand, and which really can, frustrates people, is that it's always a moving target. Like what might
Mhm.
be your most profitable price, this week or this month, doesn't mean that now you have found that, $28 is the magic price. You really have to spend the time to look at your data, look at your sessions, look at your conversions, look at all of those data points to understand how your product is doing over time. So if you're really only going to look and say that, this month I hit it out of the park at $28, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to continue forever. So,
Yeah.
falling into that trap of just, a price worked for a week. Sometimes people are really that, just that lack the ability to even see data or look at data, will see something works for a short period of time and believe that they've struck gold, and
Yeah.
it really like on Amazon, just things change too often. So it really is setting up a structure in which you can, learn how to use data in order to, monitor the pricing that you actually have, to make sure that whatever worked on, Monday also works on Tuesday and Wednesday.
Yeah. And can you go into a little bit about how long do these tests for repricing strategies on Amazon, how long do these A/B tests take typically?
So I would say A/B test is probably not the right word. So like A/B
Mhm.
testing is something that you really do with images, and you kind of really do with things like that are, copywriting per se. But pricing is something that needs to be a little bit more dynamic over, I would say over time. We like
Mhm.
to really look at stretches over a week, over a 1 week period. very often, a Saturday and a Sunday will have different conversion rates than, a Monday or Tuesday, depending on the business that you're in. So really getting to look at the cycle of, a week and understanding how you've performed through that cycle and then making manipulations after that is the way that we usually recommend looking at your data. There's definitely some, caveats in there where if something's going wrong, we usually, one of the rules that we say is that if you've dropped more than 15% in your velocity day over day, it's time to pull the plug on that test. And
Huh.
because if you don't want to wait a week, because Amazon has a tendency to look at your conversions and start to ding you on your search volume and where they'll show you if you really start to drop. So if you wait too
Yeah.
long, if you drop to page 2, let's say theoretically, to get back to page 1 is going to be really expensive. So if
Yeah.
you're seeing that it's not working, you can't really wait that long. But as long as you're kind of hovering in some sort of a path that looks like, your velocity is staying somewhat stable, that's really where you want to see, can I afford this task? Can the market accept this higher price? And, if it does over the course of a week, you can continue to inch up. That's also really why we never recommend drastic price changes,
Yeah.
because just you don't want to. Amazon is a directional algorithm. If you break it, it is very unforgiving. So you really want
Yes.
to tread lightly and make sure that you do not break, whatever. So there's actually a big misconception that changing your price negatively affects your search volume and will negatively affect your ranking. And
Hmm.
it's absolutely false. Your
Huh.
conversions, your conversions not working, that negatively affects it. If you have an item that you were selling for $20, and this happened in COVID like crazy, you're selling a pair of scissors for $20. If the market wants that and you can sell it for $40 and you change that price and it's still selling, Amazon doesn't care. All right. As long as the item's converting, moving the price has no effect on your sales rank, has no effect on the search volume. Not
Huh.
converting has a tremendous value, has a tremendous impact on whether or not your item is going to come up in search. So that really is why those big price moves can really play a big role in negatively affecting your conversion rates, which is really going to drop you, which is where that misconception comes from. That, changing a price is what makes it happen, where it's really not. It's changing your conversion that's really going to affect where you are on the page.
How many percentage points would you say is when the test is not working? Because it's so hard to balance seasonality, like with this, of saying like, oh, I was great one week, but then a seasonality, like you didn't get a TikTok post this week, and it goes down. And I can imagine how difficult that can be to test it. So how are you approaching that, and how do you know when a test is successful and isn't, even with seasonality?
So seasonality is definitely a big factor in sort of understanding what your expectation is, and one of the biggest way you can figure out seasonality is really by your keyword ranking, right? If your keyword ranking is number 7 on, Christmas, Yuletide, whatever it is that you're selling, you could be number 7 in June and you're going to sell one piece a week because no one cares in June. But if you're number 7 in Christmas, you're going to sell, 1,000 units a day. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're tracking that metric and you're really looking at how you're tracking on the keyword, that's going to eliminate really any of those seasonal biases, because that shouldn't change depending on the season. It's really going to, it's going to change only depending on your conversions. So if you're
Hmm.
converting poorly, you're going to lose keyword ranking. So that really is for, as far as seasonality, is really why you really need to be tracking your keyword rankings over time so that you understand where you were before you go into these testings, to see, did that drastically change for better or for worse. We have a
So
lot of instances. I'm sorry, I continue.
go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, no, so we have a lot of instances where, raising a price will actually improve your keyword rank. And, there's definitely some, this I'm going to say is not confirmed, but is more of like the Amazon, gurus
Uh-huh.
will tell you that it's out there, is that Amazon likes to see higher pricing. And that if you have an item for $100, right, they're going to make more money if an item is selling for $100 on page 1 than an item that's selling for $10.
Yeah.
So the higher price that you can actually have an item and have it convert, the more points Amazon's going to give you, and the higher up on the page, you're more likely to show up in search. So, squeezing
Interesting.
out as much as you can. If you raise a price and you're converting and converting better, that's the holy grail. You know,
Yeah. And so it sounds like click through is also an important metric. So there's like conversion rate, which is your conversion rate on the page, but it sounds like click through rate is even more important because your conversion rate can stay the same. Let's say it's 12%, but if you raise your
Mhm.
prices so much and everyone's clicking on your competitors, your click through rate might dramatically drop where you're
Mhm.
getting a lot less viewers, but your
Yep.
conversion rate might stay the same. What are some insights
Correct.
that you have on that?
Yeah, so you're using click-through rate. What we actually use as our guiding light is sessions. So
Okay.
a session on Amazon is defined as when one customer comes to a listing, they click on it, and if they leave and come back, that's still considered one session. So
Mhm.
we're basically always, and you can almost draw a straight line on a graph between sessions and velocity. And if Amazon is showing you to more people, and basically they're clicking on it, which is your click-through rate, and you're getting sessions, that's good news. So if you stop seeing your sessions, or if you're tracking your sessions and they go down, and kind of maybe an easier way to look at it, right, is if you're tracking keywords. Let's say you have 100 keywords that people are clicking on you for. Sessions is basically the summary of all of your keyword tracking. So
Yeah.
sessions is one number that's really telling you how are all my keywords performing, and if that is going in a negative direction, the wrong way, that means whatever decisions you're making are problematic. If that's going
Yeah.
in the right direction, so if you can see a price increase and you can still see your sessions going in the right direction, then that's really our North Star. And even more so sometimes than conversions, right? So if we had an instance where we were selling an item in, a baby category, and for whatever reason, Amazon decided to start showing that item in, you know, toddler and like older children. So wasn't converting, but we were getting more sessions, and we don't care why they want to show that item to somebody else. But if Amazon wants to show your item customers for free, then great news. So you don't necessarily
Yeah.
care if your conversion's dropping. All you want to know is that they're showing it to more people. So if they make
Yeah.
that decision to give you more sessions and your conversion rate is dropping, we still don't care. All right? Because
Yeah.
just organically show my listing to as many people as you want, and that's ultimately going to be good news. So that,
Yeah.
more than anything is really the guiding light to make sure that any decision, whether it be advertising based, you know, picture based, images, copy, all of those things that you're changing should ultimately lead to more sessions. If they don't, something's going wrong, and that's ultimately going to lead to, bad news at the end of the day.
Yeah. And I didn't know if you had this data. This would be interesting. Like, let's say you have a product with same exact quality, same exact price point, and you're constantly competing with them. Do do you usually see that? Is there a threshold of a number that where the customer be willing to purchase that product versus another product? Meaning that, let's say the same exact amount, same exact quality, but then let's say if it's 20% lower, you get a dramatic increase in sales. Past that certain point, it could be like that product is $31, but you're $29.99, for example, and then that's where your sales kill it. Is there any of that threshold? Do you have any of those numbers? I know that's a super big vague question, but I
Um,
didn't know if you had that kind of threshold number by chance.
So one of the rules that we usually have with price drops, right, is if you're going to move a price down, we'll usually kind of like to say go big or go home, right?
Uh-huh.
Because if you're moving down 2%, 5%, there usually isn't that big of an effect, right? Which is why we kind of also see it's the same thing on the way up or on the way down, right? If your item is, doesn't have price elasticity, where I mean that like if you're able to move it,
Mhm.
up and down and there's no problem, then a move up 5%, down 5% isn't going to make a difference, which means you may as well move up 5% because the customer really doesn't care. But if
Yeah.
you get to those levels of 10%, the same reason why a 10% increase in price is scary, or a 10 to 15% increase in price right away is scary. You need to move the needle if you're moving the price down. A 10%, we usually recommend that you're moving at least 10% when you do a price drop. in order to have an impact, right? Because if you were 31.99, like you were saying, and you're going to be 30.99, they have more reviews, they like the image better. It's almost apples to apples at that point.
Yeah.
So we find as a broad rule, if you're making a price change, to move it down at a minimum 10%. If you can afford to move down more, great. That sort of really depends on your margin and see if you can actually afford it. But you want to make a move that's meaningful. And that's really just an overall, and again, it's very category specific. There are certain categories that are, mainly one of the main categories that we see, which pricing is the biggest challenge, is electronics, accessories, phone cases, headphones, these items that are generally cheap. Like if you're in that 9.99 area for an item, if you go to 10.99, you could literally destroy the item because nobody cares. It's, earphones and they want to pay $10. There's no
Yeah.
brand loyalty, they really just don't care. So,
Yeah.
electronics specifically is a very, very tough category to move pricing. If you're talking about things that are, home goods, it's a knife set, it's, these things that are just, in that $20, $30 area. Is it 32? Is it 28? They're really buying something, that they're buying it because they like it, they need it, they're gonna, they have, they're gonna own it for a while. Those things tend to be much more, flexible to move pricing around.
Yeah. And so I have a question for you. This is a very
Mhm.
interesting one. A lot of Amazon sellers ask me this one, so it's going to be very interesting. So if you are dropping your price to beat a competitor, promotions, dropping the price manually, coupons, like promo code percentages, promo code, the by dollar amount. Which one? Like it's I don't know. Like there's so many options. Which one do you
Yep.
recommend?
So the probably one of the most successful ones is usually Prime exclusive discounts, where that's actually you're going to get a slash through on your item. Where if it's $20 and you do a prime, I'm not sure. Well, to explain what a prime exclusive discount is, you can go into the back end of Seller Central and put a discount for Prime members only, which says that if you're a Prime member, you get 10% off, 20% off of the current retail price, which means you're now showing on Amazon in search. It will say, if you're a Prime member, it'll say 19.99 with a slash through. And because you're Prime, it's $18. Because you're Prime, it's $16. So that messaging sends the message that this is discounted. If you're not a Prime member, which is basically one out of every 1,000 customers at this point on Amazon, if you're not a Prime member, it'll say $19.99. If you sign up for Prime, this is going to be $16. So for the most part, those people, let's say you lose when you do a Prime exclusive discount because they feel like they're getting hosed, but it's really such a slim portion of the amount of people that shop at this point on Amazon that you're now giving that impact to show that, in search, when somebody is looking at an item, it's actually showing at 17.99, and when they click on the listing, they'll see that it was actually 19.99. So that's layer one, if you can do it. The reason why coupons can be very exciting, we usually recommend coupons for items that are higher priced, right? If an item is $50 or more, it usually makes sense to try and use coupons. And there's, two reasons. One, items that are more expensive, people spend more time looking at. So they'll look at it, and the coupon of, 10, 20% that you might throw in an item is much more meaningful, right? Because now you're giving them $10. If you're giving them a coupon of 10% on a $20 item, it's a couple dollars, doesn't feel as exciting. So we usually recommend coupons at these higher priced items. And when you do coupons, very often, and this is kind of blows your mind, that pretty much you're looking at a 50 to 60% clip rate, which
Wow.
means that people are, and we had this on a bunch of items. We were selling a $500 item. We were giving a $100 coupon on the item, and only 70% of the people clipped this $100 coupon, which
Wow.
is wild. And if you go on the chats, ask around, this is standard operating procedure. People do not clip coupons. So
Huh.
all of a sudden, you're able to get a better click through rate. People will come, they'll see the coupon. This is like an Amazon mystery. Do they forget? Do they not realize that you have to clip it at the end? Did they not understand? I don't think people are checking their Amazon statements at this point on their credit card, so they don't even know what's flying at this point, the way Amazon works. But this has become a way to actually put a big number up. And now an item that's 500 that you want to mark down to 400, you're effectively selling it for $430 now because you know that you're not going to get a full clip through rate. So it's just
Interesting.
the higher your pricing goes, sometimes the more exciting coupons can be. You just have to be careful with how you show up in search. So on these type of items, let's say it's a $500 item for argument's sake, which I'm sure not too many people have. But if you try to do something that was $500 and do a 50% off, 50% off coupon that brings it down to $250 in search, it's going to say $499. The little tiny thing in green that they can barely even see, especially on mobile. So now you're going to be $499. They're going to see everybody else's at $299 or $250, and it's not even worth looking at your item because you're so out to lunch as far as your retail price that no one's going to click on the item in the first place. So you have to thread that needle where you're at a price that's still reasonable for search, that they'll click on it, see the green thing, and at least be interested in seeing what that coupon is. So you just can't completely say, you're going to take an item and sell it for 5 times the amount and do a 75% off discount. It's not going to fly. The customer's not that, they're not that ridiculous.
And I want to talk about that for a second. When it comes down to Prime exclusive discounts, like, does it make sense to raise the price 10% and do a Prime exclusive discount that has 10% less? Does that make sense for an Amazon seller?
Yes, 100%. However, Amazon has gotten way smarter. So they
Mm-hmm.
used to allow you to do whatever you wanted. You would raise it by $10, do a Prime exclusive, discount $10 more. They're now referencing what's called a was price. So there used to be list price. They now have a was price. What the was price is, arbitrary. They pick it out of a hat. No one can quite figure out why they decide to pick this price. And they're not going to let you just arbitrarily create a discount that's way higher than where you were before. So they'll suppress your Prime exclusive discount if you try and play too much of a game and raise it too high. So
Interesting.
you're a year late on that idea because it used to work like a charm, and they
Uh-huh.
actually killed it over the course of last Black Friday. It was a big way that people actually kind of scam the system and put in these Prime exclusive discounts, which was big on Prime Day. These Prime exclusive deals they were, and you put it up, you got it in the morning on Prime Day, and on Black Friday all your deals were suppressed. And then you had to go in
Wow.
one by one and figure out where they want you to be because they didn't actually tell you until the morning of, of whatever Black Friday was. So
That's
they got
horrible.
wise. They got wise to that. But it used
Yes.
to be a really fun game to play.
So what I'm hearing is, if you want to get increase your sales and stand out against your competitors, is to use Prime exclusive discounts rather than decreasing your price. Is that what I'm hearing?
I would say that when you can, that's definitely, a nice way to do, I'll call it temporary reductions. One of the other things that you really also need to keep track of is if you can get a slash through just by reducing your price, you'll also have a lowest price in the last 30 days. So
Hmm.
that's a badge that, again, it runs out of steam at a certain point. There's only so long you can do that, but you may want to save these different tools that you have in your tool belt, so to say, in your pricing tool belt, to know that if you can get a badge that says lowest price in the last 30 days, that is kind of similar to what a Prime exclusive discount, might be, and the effect of what that is just being able to have that badge there sometimes can be, also pretty effective. So it really is just going through your tool bag and seeing, what Amazon will let you do. And, if you can sneak in $1 increase and then do a Prime exclusive discount and Amazon will let that becomes more exciting than just reducing your price. If you can't do that, then maybe a straight price reduction is, also can be effective and you're not losing, whoever it is that, or there was, FBM or the, whoever doesn't have Prime, that actually is trying to, buy something. So,
Yeah.
but ultimately, it's the same message that you're trying to get across is you want somebody to look at your item and see that it's discounted from where it was before. And
Yeah.
how all of those tools sometimes it really will depend on your retail price to decide which one is the best. But for the most part, they honestly all have success, as long as that, the biggest thing that doesn't work is lower price. There's no slash through, and no one knows that the price is different than it was yesterday. If you're doing that and you look at your listing and that's what Amazon's doing to you, then you got to try something else because
Yeah.
because now you have a problem.
That's so true. And I want to get your opinion on promo stacking in Amazon. Is it smart or is it dumb?
Um, I'll say it's sometimes dangerous. I've had so many horror stories of people misunderstanding the promo stack, and
Yeah.
in theory it's okay,
Hmm.
but not understanding that it was 10% off of this and then the coupon, or that something inevitably seems to go wrong when you do promo stacking. But on the face of it, slapping a coupon on top of a Prime exclusive discount is a great idea, right?
Yeah.
But just how much room do you actually have to do these things? But if you can and you have the margin, but it needs to be meaningful at the end of the day. Like, I wouldn't do a Prime exclusive discount of 5% and a coupon of 5%. I mean,
Yeah.
you're better off doing a coupon of 10 or a Prime exclusive discount of 10. Like, you need to be in a meaningful range on whatever you're stacking. So just to put a 50-cent coupon, just to say there's a coupon on there, is actually really almost adding no value. So just
Hmm.
try and think like a customer. What's going to make a customer care, and you're not really tricking the Amazon algorithm by just throwing stuff on a listing. They really don't care.
Got it. So what I'm hearing is like even if it's like a super small amount coupon, like even like a 5% coupon to get that green badge, is what I'm hearing that it still really doesn't matter. Is that what I'm hearing?
I would say if you're stacking it on top of another deal, then I would say yeah, and I would say even regularly, just if you want to put a 5% coupon on an item, and I would almost say it's not worth the money that you're giving away. The customer, for the most part, is almost not going to care. They'll almost be offended to a certain extent. But yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's just not meaningful. Like, if you're going to do it and you're going to give Amazon the 60 cents, for whatever it is, for whoever it is that clips a coupon, make it meaningful, or do something else. It's just
Yeah.
giving money away.
It makes sense. And let's touch on advertising for a bit. So, when it comes down to advertising and pricing strategies, like I'd love to hear more information, like because obviously there's a point to where you decrease your price, increases advertising efficiency, which helps you save on spend, and then there's like that threshold there. And I just love to hear more information about pricing
Yeah.
and advertising on Amazon.
Yeah, so probably one of the biggest mistakes that you can make, and a lot of people use automated PPC softwares as well, is that, and even if you're not, it's just really being aware of the different budgets that you have on items. If you're not maxing out, and for the most part, many people aren't, if you have a campaign that is not maxing out its budget on a daily basis, let's say for argument's sake, you set a $100 budget on this campaign, and you've been spending $20 to $30 a day on a regular basis, and you're not even looking at it. If you now reduced your price by 10%, and all of a sudden you're getting conversions, Amazon's going to start spending because it's converting. They're going to start showing it more. And we've made this mistake where you wake up in the morning and you sold 100 pieces, but you also spent $100 on that same item, and that wasn't your plan. You wanted to see how many you could sell organically, because I couldn't afford to spend $1 for every unit that I'm selling. I already reduced my price. So you have to make sure that when you're making these price reductions, that you're looking at your campaigns, is the expectation is that your ACoS is going to go down for those, and your spend is going to go up because Amazon's going to show it to more people if it's working. So you want to make sure that you set those budgets and reel in those budgets if you're doing price reductions. And the same idea is the flip side, is if you're raising pricing, you want to make sure that you're going into your budgets and raising those ACoS targets. Because if you can afford to sell an item now for 10% more, let's say, then don't just keep all that money. You want to reinvest that into the item, because ultimately, if you can have higher prices and you're still converting, you want to do that upward spiral where you're adding more fuel to the fire and driving that further and closer towards page one. And if your
Yeah.
ACOS targets are set to a previous margin, and your campaign budgets are set to a previous margin, then you're not going to be spending when you should be. So those are probably the biggest interplay I would say between higher prices and lower prices is just campaign budgets and ACOS targets and making sure that those are in line with your new pricing strategy.
That's really valuable. And when it comes down to the advertising and pricing tips, do you have any more tips or suggestions when people comes down to advertising on Amazon?
Tips or suggestions on advertising? My
Yeah,
goodness.
like advertising or pricing there. Yeah.
I mean, that is, I'm going to say that that is probably too broad of a question
Yeah.
because that is, you know, there's so far that you can go in advertising.
Uh-huh.
Other than to say, I'll say this. This is probably the most important thing to where I feel like people can sometimes not see the forest through the trees on advertising. There's
Hmm.
very few businesses that can afford to live on only advertising. So if you're spending $5 a unit, can you afford to have no organic sales, right? And
Hmm.
just run your business through sponsored ad traffic. So most people, 95% of the businesses out there need organic traffic in order to be profitable. So if that's your baseline and you have that core understanding, your advertising goals should revolve around what is going to get me more organic traffic, not what's going to get me more PPC sales, because you can't necessarily live on PPC sales. That's not what's going to make you money. So really doing that tracking and making sure that your PPC spend, especially if you're doing keyword tracking, I'm spending to try and rank for this keyword. If I'm spending money on this particular keyword, is my organic rank improving? If it's not, that's not necessarily wasted spend, but it's spend that's not going to ultimately lead you to be profitable in the long run. So you really
Yeah.
have to try and make sure that, again, and people have agencies that are working for them. They have, PPC managers in house, and there's this overarching feeling that if you can have a good ACOS, you know what I mean, that you should like spend from here to eternity. But that's really not seeing the forest through the trees. It's really being able to understand is whatever I'm doing, whatever I'm spending, is it ultimately leading to more organic traffic? And if the answer to that is yes, then your PPC agency or PPC person is making the right decision. So you want to keep that as your guiding principle.
And how do you feel about obviously Amazon is becoming more pay to play with
Yeah.
almost 60 to 70% of the first page being
It's
advertising now?
disgusting. It's
It
disgusting.
is.
It really is. Yeah. It's
Like
hard to
every
shop.
single white space is now like an ad, basically.
I-
So,
it's hard to it's literally hard to click on sometimes when we're like looking at our own products, so we'll try and kind of see where we rank. You have to make sure you don't want to click on the sponsored ad because you don't want to pay, and you have to try and find where you are organically because we're there sponsored like 7 times and we're only there organically once. They
yes.
really it's the only thing that's I guess kind of that I will say is that it's definitely it. Again, people say may not want to hear this, but because it's such a pay to play game right now, if you haven't been in the Amazon game up until now and you're trying to get into it now, it's really, really, really hard. Because
Yeah.
if your Amazon rewards the people that have been on Amazon the longest at the end of the day and the listings that have been there the longest. And
Yeah.
because there's just less space on the first page, there's less space on the second page. So if all of that is pay to play and you're just starting, in order to box someone else out and take them off the list, it's so much harder because there's just so many so much fewer places that you can actually show up organically in order to make money. So it's
Yeah.
again, it's usually very we spend a lot of time as an agency telling people don't do it more than we do telling them you should do this, because you have to have some excuse for why you think your product should sell on Amazon. Like if
Yeah.
there's 10 other people that are doing it like you, then are you cheaper than them? Like, is your cost better? Do you have a competitive advantage there? Or is your competitive advantage that you're a higher quality item? Is your competitive advantage that there's some innovation? If you don't check one of those three boxes, why should why should a customer find you over everybody else who's been doing it forever? So it's really, those are the three questions that we'll ask. And if they don't have a good answer, we'll tell them, I really think that you're, for the most part, going to lose more money than you're going to make if you don't have a reason in order to actually, be better than somebody else. It's just not like it was a couple years ago where anything you listed, you were able to actually sell.
Yes, it's
Yeah, no,
exactly.
that's it. It was that. It really, we lived through it and news for a long time. It's just not that anymore.
Yeah. And what are your suggestions? I want to talk about Prime Day
Mm.
and some promotional strategies there on what is a good percentage point to decrease your price for most categories to make a big change when it comes to Prime Day. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
So you almost don't have a choice at this point, right?
Hmm.
What Amazon is doing now, and they did this for last Prime Day and Cyber 5, is they are setting their default browser to deals only. So if you go and search for an item and you don't have a deal on your item, you will not show up in search unless it's sponsored or unless somebody went in and actively clicked off on their search bar and said, I want to see all items, even a non deal item. So, in
Wow.
order to actually show up with some sort of a prime deal, you have to be 20% lower than your lowest price in the last 30 days and or 15% lower than what your current price is now. So,
Got it.
the short answer is almost like have to do that. And one of the tricks that we do is if we have a variation listing, which most people at this point really have variation listings, we take one item within the variation and we do a prime discount on that for Prime Day, and
Mm,
we'll leave the other items not discounted, or we'll try and sneak the price up and then give a coupon to show some sort of a deal where we can actually make margin, but at least we're showing up in search for one of the variations. We'll get the customer into our store, onto our page. Now they're shopping the page. So if it's the
mhm.
black version or the white version or the red version, they showed up because we showed up in search under that as that's a deal. They get to the page and now they're shopping. So
Yeah.
you have to try and figure out how to use one of those variations, especially on Prime Day, as almost a loss leader to, bring them in to your store. And then once they're there, they'll shop, give them a coupon, give them something. But at least you can try and make money on the other items within the store. But if you leave the store with no deals, it's going to be very challenging to drive traffic to your listings, on that 2 day national holiday that is now Prime Day.
And what are the most effective deals for Prime Day? Is it lightning deals? Is it deal of the day, limited deals? Like, love to hear your thoughts.
Uh, if you can get into those deals, which again they're pretty expensive and they have to make sense to do. First, there's the invitation only. If Amazon invites you to a deal, then that's usually good news. You should usually jump on one of those Amazon exclusive to invite deals. But we definitely shy away from the lightning deals and from those other deals that you would have to pay for. We have found very limited success in
Hmm.
doing those type of deals that aren't the exclusive Amazon invitation. So, that if you're paying, it's $500 for a lightning deal, $700, there's the different deals that Amazon kind of throws out there. If you're paying for those deals, then where they show up in search on Prime Day is such a roll of the dice that it's really not worth that spend. They happen to really promote the things that they invite you to. They'll invite you to pay, but if they're inviting you for this special, Prime deal, and you're going to be on whatever page, that's going to be something that you want to at least entertain, as opposed to just paying to play without that, special invitation for a special deal.
Wow, I've never heard that before. So basically, you're suggesting not doing a lightning deal on Prime Day and just doing a Prime exclusive discount. Discount?
Yes, yes,
Wow,
yeah. Yeah, no,
that's
those
crazy.
lightning deals, yeah, your placement for those lightning deals is they could place you at 4 o'clock in the morning for an hour, and you don't know where they're showing you and what. Like, it's just, we've had so many horror stories of just lightning deals that ran that you spend a ton of money on, and you start bringing inventory in for what you think is going to be a big deal, and they barely give you any play at a time that's meaningful. They're usually reserving their good airtime for the deals that they're actually promoting and choosing to run themselves.
Wow, that's amazing. I was not aware of that, so that's really interesting. And is there anything else that's really been top of mind for you lately? Of things that it could be about pricing, it could be things that you see doing Amazon sellers doing wrong right now. What's really been top of mind for you lately?
um, I, I would really say that for us, we really are pushing this idea of profit dollars, not profit margin. Like, that really is because costs are going up. And, like, we kind of, funny, we introed with, we can, raising prices, but really bringing pricing down right now is also something that needs to be looked at. The economy's a little bit in a shaky space. We're seeing overall search volume on Amazon is dropping. So if you look at just the amount of customers that are coming into Amazon between January and now, is down, I think, somewhere in the area of like 15%, which is,
Wow.
pretty huge. So the search volume is dropping overall, and the customers are getting pickier. So, fees have gone up, dramatically in the last 5 months on Amazon. So there's this, definitely knee jerk reaction that when we need to raise pricing, and it's just not always the case. So there's
Yeah.
we really try and impress upon people that if you can sell one piece and make $100, like, wouldn't you rather sell 1,000 pieces and make $1,000? Like, you're looking at your margin, you're like, my margin's great, but if you're looking at margin only in the current environment, you really have to start looking at, can I live with a 10% gross margin if I can actually do volume? And
Mm,
testing out some of those lower prices, it's just something that some accounts really are just like, I cannot function at lower than 25 points. It's like, you're really making a mistake, because at 15 points you could be profiting an extra $5,000 a week, but you're stuck on this margin concept, and you're really just not seeing that you can really do that much more volume if you could hit a competitive price. And Amazon is more unique of a marketplace than anywhere else, where they really reward you for converting. And on your own website, maybe you're getting customers, maybe you're moving up in Google search. It's just not the same as that flywheel effect that you get on Amazon. And if you're converting, Amazon pushes you to the top, and if you're on the top and you can stay there, you can do business at lower margins and make, I mean, some of the numbers that I see in the software would blow your mind. Like, accounts that are doing $30 million a year, and you're like, these guys are heroes, and they work on 3 points. And then you're
wow.
like,
Seriously.
how do they work on 3 points? And I'm like, you know what? What's 3% of 30 million? I could live on that. Like, it's like, what I mean? Like, all of a sudden, you're like, you know what? It's a way of doing business where, after all of the expenses that are there, if you're willing to do volume, and you're willing to work at slim margins, you can really make a lot of money. It's just a matter of, reframing how you see the world. And, it's definitely work, but 3% on $30 million is definitely, a lot better than 30% on $1 million. You know what I mean? Like, it's
Yes.
just, so that's we see more of it than you'd believe.
Yeah, that's amazing. And what would you say to get sellers in that starting mindset of saying, hey, lower margins are good? And how do you recommend them possibly testing the waters of what that looks like? Because a lot of sellers, they're going to go, I don't want to decrease my margins. That's stupid. Like, how would you approach that situation and make it where they could lower their margins and increase their volume to increase their overall sales?
Yeah, I mean, it's straight testing, right? It's
Hmm.
really just straight looking at your week over week numbers, looking at those session counts, and ultimately looking at your profit dollars. If you
Yeah.
made more money, week over week, or I'll say this, that if you could sell 100 pieces and make $100 on Amazon, or sell 10 pieces and make $100. Amazon wants you to be the 100-piece guy that's making $100. You're more likely to sell 150 pieces and make $150, and that 10 pieces is probably going to turn to 9 and 8. So
Mm,
they're looking for things that convert. So if you have the
yeah.
option and you could do the same profit dollars at a lower margin than you can, like if you're running a regular business, that's idiotic, right? Like, why would I work that much harder? On Amazon, it's the complete opposite, right? Like, that number will continue to rise. And if you can see that number continuing to rise, now you're actually on a path towards making profits and not really getting hung up on, I need to make margin.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Well, that's all we have time for today. I know we can go on for this for 7 more hours.
Yeah.
So, Jason, please tell them, the audience, how to find you and how to find more about your business.
Great. So azsellerkit.com is the website. You can go there, and what we've been, offering as of late is, if you sync your account, we'll do a free consult of your current pricing strategies, and give you a consult to show you where you could benefit from potentially higher or lower prices. So we'll look at that for you if you sync your data. You can always come in and do a demo, and we'll show you kind of how we do things with our software. And you can find me on LinkedIn. You'll see all different different podcasts, different strategies, different things, where you can find me at Jason Hanan on LinkedIn. And yeah, otherwise I should be pretty easy to find. Anywhere else you can find me, just search for me, and I'm always happy to engage or kind of talk to anybody that's in the Amazon space. I love this stuff. I really do.
Yeah. Yeah, you're very passionate about it. I love it.
Yeah,
Uh,
yes.
you're the most passionate person about pricing that I've ever met. So,
I've only been doing this for like 20 years, You don't
I
get
love
gray
it.
hair like this for nothing, like,
Well, Jason, thank you so much for joining. Thank you, everyone, for watching. And we'll catch you next time on the Marketing Perspective Podcast.